Howdy, all of you delicious people. I'm here today to review Lucifer Season 1, Episode 13. So, yeah, like, this last episode was just a very, much of an episode that tastes like wood. It just a really flat episode. I was really just disappointed in it, because, like, man, like, the last episode should have been the end of the season. And now we're just going on and just having to do a wrap-up episode, which just felt very limp and lifeless. And it was just like, man, that sucks to end your show on just kind of like this kind of note. Where really all we have at the end of this episode is to be this cliffhanging thing of like, oh, there's something coming. There's something a brewing. And I'm like, no, there's not. Like, the character that they mentioned at the end of this episode, I'm like, I didn't really care all that much for that character. I would rather go on and wait for something else to kind of come a-stirring or bumping in the night for this show. And that guy might have been accompanied by a certain kind of CW show before this. But anyways, God, why does he reference Tom Welling so much in these episodes? He just must have like a hard-on for that guy. I don't know. Yeah, like the character that they mentioned at the end of this episode, I was like, yeah, so the only thing that really is to be important with that character is that character eventually being with Dan in some way or another. Like, that seems to be the only real important thing that person has going on. So I'll go on and I'll talk about that in spoilers. Kind of, just kind of mention who that character is and how exciting that journey will be to have that character in our lives. No offense to the actress. It's just like, I don't remember anything that really stuck out to me. Just like, character, But again, like, I probably don't remember quite much of the episodes. So we'll go into that journey as we go into it. So, within this episode, we kind of mostly focus on Malcolm, and like the beginning of this episode is to pick up where we left off with Lucifer having suspicions about murdering a man called Jacob. And so with this episode, we weirdly have it where like Lucifer has gone on and consistently worked with these detectives for an entire season now. And immediately when, like, it seems that Lucifer is in a place that is to have possibly made people think that he's the murderer, they're like, oh, wait, it's Lucifer. Like, he can't be a murderer. Come on. Like, really? So they don't even like they don't even rule him as a suspect, I guess now. Like, so Lucifer can kind of in this world, like, he can get away with murder, and no one is ever going to think it's going to be him. They're just going to think it's somebody else. But also, we have some moments of which that kind of do justify the fact that like, they rule out Lucifer as a murderer anyways. So with that said, let's just go into that double 5 time territory, because it's about that time to just go into spoilers about this episode. Let me know how you felt about Lucifer Season 1, if you went out of your way to say that you saw every one of these episodes, or just listen to me go on and do a lot of this, which I do appreciate. Thank you for going on and doing that, because at the end of the day, it's about time to say that it's about spoilers. You know what I'm saying? Yep. Anyways, let's go into that double 5. because it's about that time. Just go into spoiler time. Spoiler time. It's about that time again to spoil this episode. So, from where we left off. So, there was to be a dead guy called Jacob in Lux, just kind of, I'm dead, with a bullet in his head. So, we had Chloe, who's like, well, Lucifer, I'm gonna have to arrest you because you're obviously the culprit who was to have been seen attacking Jacob before. I'm like, well, like, you know, if Lucifer actually wanted this guy dead, like, he could kill him with his bare hands. But no, he's gonna go on and use a gun? Seems very odd. So, but Lucifer has just had it with Earth. And so at this point, Lucifer is to not only be with Chloe, but then some other detectives. And so Lucifer is just like, well, hey, I'm going for a gun right here. I'm gonna go for a gun. You should shoot me, detective. Random detective that is with Chloe, oddly. And so Lucifer is to all of a sudden be whisked away by Amenadiel, and Lucifer is telling Amenadiel, it's like, you know what, like, I think it's time for me to like, leave this mortal coil and go back to hell. Like, come on, Amenadiel, like, you get what you want. Because I'm just sick of this place. So, because Lucifer is just, like, I think he's just kind of worn out his whimsy or his welcome or whatever with this place called Earth. So he's just done. He's already done. Man, like, if he's already done in the end of season 1, what just, like, is going to transpire within other episodes? He's already just like, you know what, Earth? Boo. I'm just going to go back. I'm just going to go back to hell and just torture people. Because that sounds like a bag of fun. So, Lucifer is talking to Amenadiel. God, every single time I want to say Amenadiel, I just want to say the word make a deal. I don't know why. I just want to call him Make a Deal. Even though I understand completely that this is an actual name, I just want to say Make a Deal. Or Make a Deal. Can I just call him that now? Anyways, so Lucifer and Amenadiel are to go on, and Amenadiel is telling Lucifer, it's like, well, hey, like, you know, we have a bigger problem that we have to solve here. And that, of course, is Malcolm. So we have Lucifer figuring it out that Malcolm is to probably want to go and branch out and want to eventually try to, like, get out of town, which really means that he's going to get this fake identity. He's going to go on and get a whole new life for himself. And so Lucifer is just like, well, like, I know a guy who can do that kind of thing, and so let's go on and let's meet up with him. So, transition here. So, we have Chloe and we have Dan, and they're at this site, and as we remember, we had Dan, who was to see that Malcolm was to have this gun that had, of course, prints on it that was to possibly frame someone else for the death of this. So Dan is to already know about this whole, like, gun thing going on, and so Dan is to go with Chloe and is to tell her, it's like, well, hey, like, Lucifer didn't do this and I know why. And so Dan is to go on and take Chloe to her place and tell her everything. Do a tell-all. And so Chloe, I think, ends up, like, slapping Dan and then slaps him some, does a little slap slap. And then Chloe is to go on with Dan to try to figure out how to like solve this case. So Lucifer and Amityville are going on to a guy named Neil, who I guess is to be some funeral guy who is to be going on and doing some wake of sorts. And Lucifer and Amityville are to crash this wake. And so Lucifer is basically, well, it's a wake or it's a funeral. I think it's probably a funeral. And so Lucifer is to mention how like bizarre and how like silly a funeral is, because the guy's already dead and he's not going to be able to hear any of this. He's not going to hear anything that these guys are to praise him about or to shun him about or tell people what his life was all about. So Lucifer is going on and basically crashing this funeral, and Lucifer is to go on and kind of beg Neil, like, hey, come on, like, I need you to kind of you need to go on and give me this information. So we of course go on and have Lucifer that is talking to Neil, and really this is to go nowhere. And so Chloe goes on to Malcolm's place and is to start looking through his stuff to all of a sudden find Malcolm's wife, Mel. So Chloe starts talking with Mel, and eventually at some point we have Lucifer and Amityville who is talking to Linda, and Linda is going on and like still thinking that Amityville is this therapist and that he's stealing Lucifer from her, and Amityville's like, yeah, it's not that at all. And so Lucifer is to tell Linda the truth about Amityville and that they're brothers, and Linda's like, I don't really believe that both of you can really be brothers. Like, I'm like, okay, but like let's just keep going along with this story. So we go on and have them talking, and so eventually while they end up talking, they end up coming up with some answers for one another. And so eventually this all leads with Lucifer and Amityville talking with Dan. And so Dan, after talking to Chloe, is to want to like confess. And so when Lucifer is talking to him, Lucifer is asking Dan, it's like, well, hey, where is Malcolm? Because if anybody can know where Malcolm is, you would probably know where he is. So we go on and we have, of course, Dan, who is to mention that Malcolm is at this brewery and that he also like wants to confess. So like Lucifer and Amityville are with Dan, and so they end up Lucifer and Amityville are scrambling to get to this brewery, and so at this brewery they end up confronting Malcolm, and they confront Malcolm, and so what ends up happening there is that Amityville ends up getting stabbed with this knife. And so Amityville is to make it back with Maze, and come to find out, like, Maze had kept a little feather from Lucifer's angel wings. And so Amenadiel is saying, like, well, like, I'm going to die here, and there's nothing that I can do because we need something divine to, like, cure me. So Amenadiel is like, well, I have this feather, and so we can use that. So Lucifer is to try to go on and talk with Malcolm, and Malcolm ends up running off, and so Chloe is to be with Dan to make it to this brewery, and we have Lucifer that's just like, well, like, I guess I'll go on and I'll just kind of like I'll put my hands up and you can arrest me. And Dan and Chloe are like, no, like, we believe you're innocent. Like, we completely believe that you didn't do all this. And Lucifer's like, well, okay, well, what's next? So all of a sudden, we go on into this story, and we now have, of course, Malcolm having Trixie. And so Malcolm is to call Chloe through this phone and is to mention, like, well, hey, I have Trixie, like, you have to go on and give me the money that I had that's stored into your evidence to try to go on and pay me off for this ransom. So Chloe is to go on and take this bag of money, and Lucifer is to spot what she's doing, and so he's like, like, if I'm going to go on and, like, see her do this, like, I want to help her. So Lucifer is to go on and and use one of these cars and, like, woo, like, excuse me, miss, like, hold your horses, like this and that. And so, like, Lucifer is it just sounds slightly different because I guess he drops his accent. So we go on and we have Lucifer who's mentioning that the police station is using bazookas now, and Chloe's like, I'm not buying this at all. So all of a sudden Chloe makes her way to this vehicle and Lucifer's there, and he's like, well, hey, like, I have to help you, like, I'm gonna help you, so, like, I'm gonna come with you. So Chloe goes on and is to try to make the trade for Trixie and this money and so on and so forth. But so Lucifer is to make his way to try and fight with Malcolm. And really, Malcolm is just still to, like, think that he has this, like, oh, well, I have this coin no matter what happens to me. Because we have Malcolm that, of course, is to go on and is to shoot Lucifer. He's to shoot Lucifer with Chloe present here, and so Lucifer is to die. And Lucifer is to die and to go to hell, and all of a sudden Lucifer in hell is to realize that some cage has been opened, like, as if this is, like, supernatural, when eventually the devil was, like, caged with was it Michael? Yeah, maybe it was Michael. Yeah. There's so many angels that eventually are in supernatural, it's crazy to remember who. But so Lucifer went to hell, and before he went on and he told God, he told his dad, he's like, well, hey, like, I'm going to go on and finally be the son that you want me to be. But, like, if anything in return, like, I want you to, like, make Chloe happy. I want you to, like, kind of protect her and whatever. So Lucifer goes to hell and is realized that this cage thing is open. But then Lucifer is to make his way back to Earth because he is to mention that he had this coin, and all of a sudden, like Malcolm is just kind of checking himself and realized that it seemed that Lucifer is to take was to take Malcolm's coin, and now Lucifer's coin is to vanish, and so Lucifer can't use that anymore. So we all of a sudden have like the tables turned here, and Malcolm, of course, ends up getting killed, ends up getting uh, killed here. So Malcolm is to all of a sudden realize that he has no coin, and so basically he's stuck again going to hell. So after everything is to seem to be coming up Millhouse now, and everything is technically wrapped up in a nice, neat little bow, and hopefully I really rushed this one. I really went on to like just kind of like in a very condensed way went into this. Because we also had Dan who went to the police station, and while Lucifer and Chloe was there, Dan went on and confessed that he was to have seen Malcolm keep or to take this gun out of this evidence, and Dan was to confess about the murders from Malcolm that he attempted to murder, and the other kind of guy that Malcolm was of course putting forth money to. And so Dan was to confess to that murder and confess to everything, and so Dan is to turn to Lucifer, and so Dan is to say to Lucifer, it's like, oh, are you going to call me Detective Douche again? And Lucifer's like, well, no, not today, for once. So that Dan tried to do everything to help out Lucifer, but also to just kind of have like a clean conscience about everything. And so now, like, Dan's going to be arrested for however long for all the stuff that he had done, all the crimes that he committed. So, at the end of this episode, we, of course, have Lucifer talking to Amenadiel. And so Lucifer is to mention about his time in hell and how he talked to their father. And so Lucifer is to mention that there possibly is a thing that is to, of course, have gotten free while Lucifer, like, kind of was letting, like, hell just kind of run to the ground. And so Lucifer is to mention that the possible character is to actually be their mother. So it's like, yeah, so I guess Lucifer is going to say that they're going to have a mom as a character, and I'm like, well, yeah, like, we go on and we play around with the whole mother thing because I guess since God isn't really there, then they have to kind of go on and have like a mom kind of character, but really, like, this character doesn't really do much for me until like in the later parts, or the parts where like both this woman is to eventually be romantically like tied to Dan, and like really like beyond that, like to me there isn't much else going on with this character. So I'm just like, ooh wee, like you have this character that seems to like it's going to be this big cliffhanger thing that is just go on, and like there's not much of an episode here, but man, like Lucifer's mother, I wonder how that all is going to play out. And I'm like, I'm not all that excited. I'm just not. So really that's what kind of like dampered down this whole ending of this season was really just to like go on and think of like, well, like we're just gonna be waiting for a character that I'm not exactly jazzed about, but at the end of the day, I don't know. We'll kind of see how these all episodes play out. Cause I don't remember every single one of these episodes. I just don't, because my life eventually becomes a blur. Uh, like I can go on and like I can kind of like through some just be like, oh yeah, I remember this one, or oh yeah, I remember that one. Um, but most of these episodes, I'm just like, okay, I know like certain ways of which that these characters develop at some point, but that's all I really remember. So yeah, so with that said, I think I'm just gonna get out of here so I can go on and hopefully maybe do one video or hopefully do something before I fall asleep because it's starting to get to that ninth inning thing because I started later just because I was really just like I don't know I was like having a brain just like because really it's just been a while to just go on and try to just continue to just keep figuring out how to one up myself every single time I go on and do these things. So it's just starting to get to just like, man, what bigger thing could I put out there? What more could I really do? And so yeah. So with that said, I'm gonna get out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody.